ladies and gentlemen, welcome into Three Men Talking Fantasy Football. I'm Mr. Bill DeCluseless. I'm here with Mr. Tom Lang, and we are joined again by special guest, Mr. Tyler Humphreys. How are you doing, gentlemen?
Doing good.
Doing awesome.
Doing great.
Very,
Ready
very
for the
good.
2025-2026 season already. Let's go.
Yeah, with that, we just had the Super Bowl this past weekend, so now we're officially in the off season now.
Finally.
Finally got there after a very long year. So the Super Bowl, I mean, it was. We don't have to tell you guys how it got pretty bad pretty quick. I sent some of the guys in the group message, a picture of the Chiefs' offensive line, which is a turnstile from the the New York subway system.
I
I
gotta be
don't.
honest. It was really nice to see some, the high premier quarterbacks getting smacked around a little bit by a really tough defense.
Yeah, I mean, this is my favorite stat from the whole game. Do you know how many times the Eagles blitzed the whole game?
Probably
Zero.
two.
Zero.
Zero.
Zero times. Vic Fangio ran a four, just rushed four the entire game. And what did they have? 8, 9 sacks,
They didn't have
20,
to blitz.
28 pressures. I mean, it was unbelievable. And that should be a recipe for success. The Chiefs, Mike Caliendo is the worst guard I've ever seen. Jawan Taylor, obviously, we already know he's awful, not to mention the whole jumping and all that stuff. So it was just a drubbing. It's funny. We were just saying before we got on the call about the 22 points. I, well, it kind of parlays it into fantasy stuff. Like, why don't they do that stuff to Worthy more often? If he's faster than everybody, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, maybe it takes him longer to learn how to run the routes as good as Tyreek Hill did, but it took Tyreek Hill a year or two to learn how to run routes that well. I I don't know why they
I
don't
mean,
do that more
honestly, I mean,
often,
at
but
that point, they were just catching people by surprise.
at
They
that
caught them by
point, but
surprise. They didn't think they were going to just bomb it out, and so they were already up by what 30 points at that point, so it didn't matter. Um, but like I said, I mean, and honestly, I wasn't super excited for this Super Bowl. I don't think a lot of people were super excited
No.
for this Super Bowl. But I will say, it was nice to see a change. Even though being a Giants fan, it is not fun to see, the division rivalry of the Eagles win the Super Bowl when, also Saquon was pretty much held in check the entire game,
they
outside of
forgot
some of
about the
his
other 10 players on the team.
receptions. Yeah, so I mean, it was a great game. I mean, Mahomes made a lot of mistakes, and I do want to bring this up, and maybe we could discuss a little bit about this because we didn't talk about this at all. But and I know this will be a little bit of like a little hurtness for you when I bring up this name, Tom Brady. But the year that Tom Brady played, the Patriots played the Falcons, they were down by what, 28 points?
Sure.
20 by at halftime. He was on the sideline pumping everybody up, getting everybody riled up, getting everybody back into the game. The game's not over. There's still another half. There's like video of Mahomes is on the sideline just kind of sulking, just like upset and just like not wanting to play the rest of the game. And it just shows you the maturity right now as a young star athlete. He's just not there as a captain of that team. And honestly, I mean, yes, and I'll probably get shunned for this, but I just do believe that, like, yes, he's a great athlete, he's a great player. It wasn't his day. He was playing against a phenomenal defense. But there was just no want to continue the game. And that's what made the game for myself just unwatchable at some points.
At the behest of not shunning you, like you said, couple points. First of all, I don't, whatever video you might have seen, God knows if it may or may not have been taken out of context at what point in the
No, I
game or
mean
whatever.
watching the game itself, just seeing him walk up and down the
But
sideline, they had the
but there
cameras
were
on him the entire
there
time.
was
He
an
just
end
didn't want to
there
be
was an
there.
endless amount of reports of him, trying to get the O line going and stuff. And there was a whole bunch of things I saw. Like he was mic'd up or whatever it is. They heard some of the stuff as he was saying. In regards to what Brady did or did not do, I don't know how many of those pictures slash videos there are of him just completely hanging his head at different things.
Oh yeah,
And if
doing his
and if you
Brady.
want to
Yeah.
get in we want to get in the nitty gritty of the 28-3. It really does help when you have a coach who completely shuts down the opposing team's offense from gaining a yard for the rest of the entire game.
I
The
mean,
Chiefs defense couldn't stop anybody and their offensive line
you,
couldn't do
you
anything.
have the best
So
defensive coordinator in the league on the Chiefs, and you have the best offensive mind pretty much in the league as well for
it
the
was
Chiefs as well.
it was the game was a colossal failure on all parts, all parts.
Tyler, do you have any perspective on it? Because I know
I
Billy
got
has. We have one side, and then Billy has the other
I
side
got
of it.
two perspectives on it.
Yeah,
One, I think Tom Brady is more effective at picking his team up than Mahomes. I think Mahomes tried, of course, at some point. He was at some point, like, come on,
yeah.
guys, let's go. But I think Brady was more effective of a leader in those moments. So, for instance, I think Mahomes, when he's in the hole, like you're 20 something points down in the hole, I think he's more checked out earlier than Tom Brady would be. Like, versus something about Tom Brady's leadership of going in there and getting those guys, setting them straight is
Yeah.
something. However, if you look a few years back, when the game's tight and it's, like you've got to be game, he brings it so hard fourth quarter, like the Bills, that classic ending of the Bills Chiefs game a few years back, and how those guys just went back and forth at it. When it seemed like game over, Bills won at one point, and he still came
Yeah.
out there and he managed to pull out the win. So I don't think I get both sides to it. Again, I think if it's more of like a closer game, Mahomes is like, you don't want to be up two. If there's 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter and you're up 2 touchdowns, I'm still sweating bullets against Patrick Mahomes. I'm
Yeah.
still sweating bullets.
It's got
But
to
if
be a
it's
it's got to be a
yeah,
close game though. It's
yeah,
got to
but
be a close game though.
if it's like a 20-point difference, if it's a 3 possession difference, he did seem more checked out than I thought he would be for this Super Bowl. I'm going to say that for this game, I think so.
Tyler, I could probably like draw together like two of your points there, just to illustrate it. So yeah, obviously, like he's had playoff games where he was down 20 points and he came back and win, but it was a different team then. I think, and this is to draw a comparison between him and Brady. It's the manner in which you're losing those games. So, for example, now it was a different score at the time, but like when you're getting pressure right up the middle in your face the entire game, it doesn't matter what quarterback you are. And I've seen Brady like this too. Nothing but dismay on his face. And it brought me so much joy for years on the couple of games that they saw that. The Giants Super Bowl that they had that for
That was a close game though.
a couple
Defense actually
games.
stood up.
Right. But they had a Ravens playoff game where they got blown off the field and nothing but, sour mugs throughout the whole game. So I've seen it before. And this is a perfect example, this game and like the Tampa Bay Super Bowl for Mahomes, where when you're running for your life, you have no time to do anything and you're just trying to make anything happen. Like and think of what we're criticizing. We're criticizing his perceived attitude, when they get blown off the field. And by the way, Tommy, Spags is a really great defensive coordinator. I mean, this was an awful, awful, awful showing for him. They spent their whole capital to shut down Saquon Barkley, and they forgot about everybody else.
Yeah.
I will say this. I mean, for me, and I don't know if you guys will agree with this. For me, I mean, I used to be a big NBA basketball fan back in the day. This reminds me kind of like of the new age of football, kind of the new age of basketball. It reminds me of the difference between Michael Jordan and LeBron James. Michael Jordan was much watch basketball. I can't watch LeBron James. I can't watch the NBA right now.
But they function through different things. They the way that they play. It's anyway. This is not a basketball show, but
I
it's
get
just
it. I was just trying. I was trying to put a perspective of how I look
Yeah,
at
yeah.
it right now.
Yeah.
It was more fun to watch when a quarterback gets drilled, and this reminded me of a quarterback
Oh
getting
yeah.
drilled. Um, but
I did, and you might, despite what you might think, I actually enjoyed it in my own sick way because I like you. I like that. I love
it's
watching defense.
football.
I love watching defensive linemen get after it. Great
Yeah.
defensive. I love that stuff. I really do. It's just, it's just the way
It
that
was a, it was a
turned
chess
out.
it was a chess match, and basically it was a quick chess match for the Philadelphia Eagles. And
Yeah.
hopefully I hope and pray for the citizens of Philadelphia because that city is burning.
Yeah. That was nuts. It's insane what they did to that city afterwards.
I don't know if they can actually have a parade in like
No,
downtown
you
Philadelphia.
can't.
They'll be running over like bodies and everything. It's
It's
crazy.
ridiculous.
Destroy the SEPTA.
Absolutely ridiculous.
So let's parlay that into our conversation today because there was a particular player in that game who we're going to have a lot to say about in this little conversation today. So we'll cover that. So we're covering top 12 tight ends from from fantasy finishing from 2024. And some honorable and dishonorable mentions. So before we jump into the names, let's just talk a little bit of math, just to give you guys a lay of the land. So, of the 10 drafted tight ends that were drafted in the top 10, only 5 finished in the top 10, and only 2 of those that were drafted in the top 5 actually went in the top 5. So if anybody doesn't understand the English of that in terms of return on investment from your draft capital, it's not as consistent as, let's say, the running backs, but slightly more consistent as the wide receivers. And if you go back and look at multiple years, you'll find a similar kind of trend. Couple of the points here. Only the top 4 finishers this year would have even finished in the top 24 of the wide receivers. And that's referencing total points again. Case in point there is obviously, unless very, very, very specific scenarios, maybe for certain weeks, are you ever really going to be flexing or trying to take upside shots on tight ends? But this is all kind of leading to the fact of when you're drafting tight ends, you have a very, very few top end tight end guys, all of which have varying amounts of baked in risk, one of which we'll talk about today, tight end for the Chiefs. And you're taking a risk when you take a guy at a onesie position like that. But if you get a sure thing, quote unquote, great, then you made your investment and then you have a positional advantage. But if not, go ahead and punt the position because we're about to talk about a lot of guys who for X amount of weeks or a few weeks here or there would have been a top 12 tight end, et cetera, would have helped your team. Last quick point I want to make is to bolster that point, the difference between the tight end 11 and the tight end 18 was less than 20 points. That is a minuscule difference considering for tight ends that you weren't even looking for a draft investment in the first place. You can find gems on the waiver wire every week, a few weeks or more. There's only 12 teams in your league, so everybody's got to start one. So at some point, you're going to find guys you could just grab.
And I will say, and just to piggyback off of that, I mean, I've always been one to kind of like let everybody overdraft tight ends, so we can basically find value in those running backs, wide receivers. Sometimes even those high end quarterbacks fall after some of these high end tight ends finish in a draft. And honestly, I mean, if you look at it, your number one finished at number 6. And that is not where you want these players for draft capital wise to be finished at. So you need to be smart in these drafts. And I mean, if everybody in the world listens to our podcast, that means which they should. But if everybody in the world listens to our podcast, Travis Kelce and these top guys like Trey McBride and Brock Bowers are going to go in the 12th round next year. It's going to be fantastic. Everybody's going to have these stud teams, and it's be great.
I think it was one of the most topsy-turvy like years for tight ends ever, as far as like where you expected Sam Laporta to finish and where you expected
that was the
guy in
biggest
Kansas
shocker.
City. Yeah, there's so many guys that you expected things from that just didn't happen this year. There was so many letdowns, in my opinion, for the tight ends. But I will say there's 2 or 3 that were very much starters and tight ends and very much a starter in your flex play as well. Definitely some very solid guys, but at the same time, it was very much a very sour note for tight ends this year versus you look back a couple years ago, how early was Travis Kelce going? Like, he was 1 or 2 years ago. He was literally going one or two,
last year.
1 or 2.
I'll tell you something. In one of my leagues, actually in a standard league, somebody took Travis Kelce at the end of the 12th and took Mahomes back to back, and that did not work out for him very well.
Yeah. Kelce last year drafted extremely high. He still did decent last year, but he drafted extremely high last year. They had such high expectations. Mm-hmm. And it's funny. I'm curious to see where this goes because, the years of like a true tight end 1, we don't really have it right now. Kelce's on his way out. We've got a real nice young buck coming, a real nice rookie that just started up. But all these other guys, I don't know where those pieces are going to fall. That's the interesting part about tight ends right now.
And I think that's perfect though, because then that gives you the perspective of you can always just wait on tight end and let somebody make that mistake by taking
Yeah,
the guy early.
Yeah, Tyler, I especially want to get your opinion once we get to number two, and we'll talk a little bit about draft strategy once
yeah.
we get there. But let's jump into the names. Finishing at number one, it's actually a familiar name here. We got George Kittle, um, back for another really awesome season. I mean, you drafted him as the tight end six. He came in and he was really awesome.
And he
I mean,
missed and he missed 2 games.
yeah, he actually missed 3 games.
Three, yeah.
One was a bye.
I apologize. He missed. I read it wrong. So he missed 2 games. The situation there, which is really awesome about Kittle, which is not the same as what was on his slate for years past, is he was very consistent throughout the year. A lot of times with George Kittle, like he'll get you 25 points and then 0 points, 17 points, 2 points. This year, it was almost every single game he was coming through and coming. He had maybe 2 games in which you were unhappy with, including week one. Other than that, he was great the whole year.
I mean, my perspective with it is because of the lack of offense that they had throwing the ball. I mean, Debo was not there. Debo is finding himself on another team. It looks like he's already been
Right.
granted
I
his
want to I
request.
want to count myself as a victory lap on that.
And
We talked about this.
yeah,
I told you he was someone who was going to
and
be traded.
yeah, I mean, I just didn't see it happening because of the contract. But I guess the contracts mean nothing these days. I guess or whatever it is. If a player wants to go, they'll find a suitor. But then also with the injury of Ayuk, there was a lot of stepping up needing to be done, and obviously the first target is George Kittle. I mean, he is kind of like that slot receiver for them, half the time too, playing inside. So he could be an outside guy. He's a big bodied guy. He runs down the field. He's quick. He makes those big plays. Um, and he's not afraid to get hit. He's more of the aggressor than taking a hit. So, um,
He's not.
fantastic year for him.
He's not. I mean, Tyler, like, because he's such a stalwart name, and like he's kind of always been playing second or third fiddle to guys like Kelsey for the last couple of years, maybe
Yeah.
throwing Andrews for a year or two.
Yeah.
It's not like he's as sexy as a name as some other names we're going to talk about, some younger guys. But I mean, is he being criminally disrespected to some degree? Like I have like, so his last year's ADP was tight end six. I'll be amazed if he's just probably exactly where he's going to get drafted this year. Like, I mean, is that wrong? Should we be assuming a higher upside, or is it completely dependent on what Tommy was saying, like, wide receivers, the offense, etc.?
Yeah, I think he gets drafted fairly similar to what he got drafted this year, maybe a little bit higher up, maybe at like the 4 or something. But I think because he did so well, it wasn't an extreme gap. He wasn't Rob Gronkowski catching all these touchdowns. He did great. Don't get me wrong. He's number one on this list, but there wasn't an extreme gap between him and the other guys behind him. And I think a lot of it has to do with the hesitation of the 49ers this past year. Okay, whatever happened to any players on the 49ers this past year, you can't rely on these stats going into the next year because there were so many inconsistencies. So it's a little bit of a gamble and a risk, because it's one thing if the Niners were completely healthy on offense, but it's different because not only that, but it was the weapons on offense were what were injured a lot this year.
Well,
So he became kind of the best thing for their weapons as far as this offense, because McCaffrey out, then Mason even was injured for a little bit, and then Debo was Debo, and Jennings, who again we talked about this, it's not like he's some new receiver. He was kind of forced to be wide receiver one on the team. So you've got your tight end and you've got, Jennings. And it was kind of a weird year for the Niners. And clearly it didn't work out. And you would expect the Niners to kind of switch things up going into the next season because they didn't even make it to the playoffs this year.
Well, I will say this just to piggyback off of that. I mean, for 2023 and 2022, he did finish at number 4 tight end, back-to-back years. This is his first year finish off on the top within those 3 years. And honestly, I mean, I think it's a criminal that he's being drafted at a 6th overall tight end. I think you're getting tremendous value if you hold and wait on him, because he's going to get injured because of the way he plays. So he's going to miss his 2, potentially 3 games per year. But when he plays, there's no hesitation. he's putting up on average, wide receiver one numbers, every other week, or two weeks he's doing it, and then 1 week he's not.
Yeah. The other
So
thing too is, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off
no, you're
there.
good.
Okay, is people know what they're getting with George Kittle. All of his years are fairly similar. I think that's also why I think people are looking for, okay, who's the new tight end number one right now?
Yeah,
They thought it was Kelsey. Kelsey's on his way out. This might have been his last year. Who knows? But
I think he'll
that's
come back, but it's
yeah,
not going to be good.
yeah. But next year, I think Laporta still is going to go higher, and I still think Bowers will go higher, and some of these younger guys because they're growing. They might step even more into a bigger role and grow more. Versus Kittle at this point of his career, you kind of know what you're getting into.
Yeah, I agree. I think honestly, if you could get him at the 6, like he's targeted every single year, I mean, it's a steal.
Yeah.
I honestly think he should be, 3 or
He
4.
might he might revert back to kind of like his old production, which was still great overall, but maybe a bit more inconsistent, kind of boomer busty kind of weeks, which could be, there's nothing wrong with that, but you'll be taking a tight end 6 investment to do that, depending on what round that is, maybe round 5 or so, 5, 6 maybe.
Yep.
Oh, by the way, we should mention. So this is scoring between weeks 1 and 17. We are excluding week 18, and then of course we'll make notes if people's averages tend to be higher because they might have missed some games. These are weeks that you would have started them. So either way,
Yep.
George Kittle number 1. So coming in at number 2, um, 0.2 points behind George Kittle. Now, again, if we were counting week 18, he would have finished well and above George Kittle. So coming in at number 2 is Brock Bowers. Yeah, so Brock Bowers and George Kittle between weeks 1 and 17 lapped the field here. So those were the two that gave you a positional advantage. So Brock Bowers was good the entire year, and it was off of the back of an endless amount of targets, which is
Yeah.
exactly what you want to see out of your tight. You don't just want it to be
I
touchdown
mean,
dependent.
who else did they have? They had the law firm of Jacoby and Myers, and they had basically Trey Tucker, who showed up once a month.
Yeah. So Tyler, this is what I want to ask you here. So uh, there's no analysis that we're going to be able to give that's going to be like we all know how awesome Bowers was, and we all know, and he's going to be the number 1 tight end going off the board. There's no disagreement here.
Mhm.
Here's my question: I always thought that like in let's say 2 or 3 years ago, whatever, like in the times that Kelsey was drafted, like at the back of the first, like I always used to think that that's a bridge too far on whatever that investment is. Basically, that's where Bowers is going. He's like the end of the first, top of the. I was just looking at like underdog and some other stuff. That's where he's right where he's slotted in. From a opportunity cost perspective, from other positions, how like far would Bowers have to blow the competition out of the water to make it that worth it? You know what I mean? For the
Yeah.
opportunity cost to be worth it. Like,
So I think a lot of it has to do too, and I'm not saying just Bowers' stats, but just the fact of who is in that quarterback position has a ton to do with it. The fact that we knew Patrick Mahomes was in the position throwing to Travis Kelsey, his favorite target, that's why Kelsey went so high in those, end of the first round, early second round type areas. Brock Bowers is going to be just as good, in my opinion. So considering what he did this year with let's be honest, no quarterback, a horrible team, and this whole year balled out as a rookie is nothing short of phenomenal. And the fact that he's still, even though as well as he did, he's still at this point will probably go late two,
Yeah.
early 3, maybe kind of in that realm. And it has everything to do with, even if we go, let's say not next year, but the year after, let's say he does the same season he just did, maybe even a little bit better for his year 2. Going into year 3, if he still doesn't have a stellar quarterback, he still won't be at that Travis Kelsey position, in my opinion. It has everything to do with who's throwing him the ball and the confidence of someone who's drafting, the confidence they have in that quarterback that's going to be at that position. If they
Yeah.
bring in a guy like Kirk Cousins, someone that's a veteran status, that's, good enough that we know, like, hey, if he did this much points with Minshew and with O'Connell, like Cousins is going to go in there and, he's going to blow it up. So depends.
I hope you're right because if ADP normalizes to the back of the second, that's much more palatable than
Yeah. I
back
mean,
of the
I
first.
gotta be honest. I just don't think that there is any tight ends that are on this list or just in general that are draftable first or early second round. They're
I,
late round second, maybe, there
yeah,
may be one person late round second that I would, take roll the dice on, or, or earliest third round. But then after that, you're waiting for the fifth, sixth, seventh round, if
yeah.
that.
Bowers would be the closest one in my opinion. Like
Yeah.
I said, we know what we get out of Kittle. We know Purdy enough now. We don't know the quarterback situation with the Raiders and how this new head coach is going to operate with them. So
Mhm.
there's so many things we don't know yet with Bowers. But in my opinion, Bowers will probably be tight end number one with the draft next year.
I
Yep,
agree.
agree.
I agree. I
Uh,
mean, the other guy behind it is the next guy that we'll
yeah.
talk about, and I'll talk a little bit more about him. But anything else, I guess, with Bowers, you feel?
Now let's parlay that into
Okay.
who you're alluding to.
Yeah.
So
So you want me to just
yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
so basically Trey McBride, he basically did this entire season without scoring a touchdown until week 17. All of his
Not a
points.
receiving touchdown. He had a fumble recovery touchdown
No, but
somewhere in
just
there.
but, yeah, but just look at this. I mean, he finished 21 points behind Brock Bowers. But imagine if he scored 4 or 5 touchdowns. We're talking about now you're staggering at 1 and 2.
Yep.
You know, you know what I mean? So like I mean, so Trey McBride, Brock Bowers and Trey McBride were the target monsters of the roster on the roster, and I do believe that McBride coming into year three, I believe, right? This is going into year three. Um, the sky's the limit. I mean, if he's gonna keep getting the targets, he's gonna keep getting those yards. The next thing is just got to get those touchdowns. So it just depends on what the situation is with the quarterback room and the coaching, over there. He had a lot of scripted plays, just like Mr. Number Four over there, which we'll talk about next. But um, McBride, I believe, can be that first tight end off the board over Bowers because he's done it back to back.
I agree with you. And now I'm going to echo like basically Tyler, like everything you said now. And so the issue for me is kind of the reverse of what you said, Tyler, about Brock Bowers. So the thing is, we know Kyler. We know who he like.
Yeah.
This is the best Kyler. Like I can't see. This is our annoyance with Kyler the whole year. I can't see Kyler getting much better. I don't know how McBride gets better, but then therefore I don't know how it really gets that much worse. To Tommy's point, this is a consistent, safe pick on a guy in which there is some more touchdown regression that could go his way. I would be the most confident in taking him in terms of like, oh, well, I know he's not going to fail me. Whatever investment I'm going to have to make on him, because you're going to have to make pretty hefty investment to make.
Sorry, McBride is going into year four. Year
Yeah,
2022, he started and it just was, a very lull year.
yeah, but I mean, to your point, Tommy, if depending on, I would consider taking Trey McBride. Put it this way, his ADP is never going to be higher than Bowers. So I have a feeling Bowers is not going to be on a lot of my teams next year. Again, unless Tyler's saying that like maybe ADP normalizes to some degree, but maybe if Trey falls a little bit, maybe I'll take a shot on him after I got some quality running backs or
Yeah.
something. But he's going to be he's great. I don't know what else to say about him.
Again, he did everything last year without scoring a touchdown until week 17. So
Yeah.
it was awesome too. I remember in the championship I had him and it was like he actually finally scored a touchdown. I got all these points this year and
Little
no
shovel pass
touchdown.
thing, whatever that was. Yeah. You drafted him as the tight end three. He finishes as the tight end three.
That's what you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah, five games with 9+ receptions. That's pretty good. He's
Yep.
getting his targets. My thing for him, I think, with the whole entire team of Arizona, I think they've got the pieces. I think it's the coaching. Something's up with the coaching over there, in my opinion. I can't quite pinpoint what it is, but that they just couldn't to get a guy as good as McBride to get him the ball in the end zone.
Well,
Something's
it's
going
your
on. Something's going on over there. I just don't know
he
what
played
it
3
is.
years in the NFL, 2 years as a starter. He's had two head coaches.
Yeah,
So,
and Kyler
it's
was in and out.
yeah, you need a consistency ratio there when it comes down to coaching and strategy.
Yeah.
And, unfortunately, the way that the league works is if you lose, you're out. And not saying that they were heavy hitters of losing, but it just they got to change it, turn it around this year because if they don't, then he's going to have his third he's going to have his third coach on the same roster in his fifth season.
last quick point. I'll get you guys on record. So we don't know where ADP is, but just for the sake of just fun, let's say Brock Bowers' ADP ends up being 112, and let's say Trey McBride's ADP ends up being 212. Both of them at their ADPs. Who would you rather take
I'd rather take McBride.
I'm,
at
I'm going
212?
Bowers.
If Bowers is at 112, I think I'll have to go McBride. If he fell a little more, I think Tyler. I think
Yeah, I
112. I
can't, I
don't know.
can't, I can't use that draft capital
It
on
all
Tyler
depends who he
Ervin.
gets at quarterback this offseason, though, to be honest, too. But
Captain Kirk probably. We'll see.
yeah, might be, might be.
There we go. So that's the top three. Two of which are extremely attractive for next year, and like we said, Kittle's going to be criminally disrespected for next year. But finishing at number four, maybe the biggest surprise of the year.
Mr. Script.
This was such a fun ride. So coming in at number four is John Smith, finishing about 12 points behind Trey McBride, 164 points. An unbelievable year.
That's a wild four.
It's a
It's a wild four.
that's a great four, and it makes me feel so much joy seeing that this name, how well he outperformed all the other names. Basically, from week 7 on, he was the tight end one or two, basically.
Yeah.
And this was a product of Tua going down, and then
And
whatever
then
the
Snoop Connor coming in, Tyler Huntley basically coming in and basically, not being able to throw the ball down the field to Tyreek Hill, him getting them all rattled and pissed off. And as you probably saw this week, he apologized to everybody in the world. He wants to play for Miami again, but they couldn't throw the ball down the field. So little dump off passes, little odds and ends to Mr. Jonnu Smith, which was a heavy benefit. That was actually the same week that he went off was the week that um Taysom Hill had his massive week as well. I remember I had both of them and I had to drop one of them because I had to pick somebody else up because of the buys. And I
that
did
was
drop
a,
Johnny
that was in week
Smith.
11. That's right.
Yep.
And John Smith really started picking up week 7 on. That's like what Tommy said, the Snoop Connor situation. But Tua comes back, so I just want to put in perspective. So John Smith scored 164 points in total throughout the year, from week 11 to week 17. As 107 of those 164 points, by far and away the tight end won from those weeks. He got you to your championship. He helped win you a championship right off right off the waiver wire. I don't think any of the three of us think that this is going to continue next year, unfortunately. But I would take a shot on him if he ain't going to be drafted in the top 12. I mean, I
No,
would.
I don't think he's drafted at all. Unfortunately, and I keep saying I remember I said this early on, like during the regular season when we're talking in the playoffs. I just don't think he's drafted. I mean, he's been playing since 2017. He had that one tremendous year in Tennessee, that was 2020. And then he was silent for his 2021, 2022 years. That was on New England when they basically had a double up
Which
with
I'm
Hunter
ignoring.
Henry.
Yeah.
And then he went to Atlanta and he had a pretty decent couple games here and there, but nothing as this was his best year in his 8th year in football. He's going on year 9 next year. He was a Pro Bowler this year. Um,
I'll
hey,
take a
you
shot.
know
I'll take
what?
a
If
shot.
I will say this, if he's not drafted or if he's like sitting there in the last round of the draft and you haven't taken a tight end because you decided to wait, pick him up. I mean, he's a diamond in the rough right there. I mean, that's something that basically can, he could be a streamer, could be a completely bust, or he can be your top 5, tight end.
It's yeah, nothing.
Who knows?
Who knows? Indeed, he's the perfect example. If you're taking a shot on a tight end late, like we said, like
Yeah.
it's all up in that. You might as well take a
Let's
shot on
put
a
it
guy
this
who
way.
did it.
Let me put it this way. Would you next year, seeing what Travis Kelsey did throughout pretty much the entire season, but then woke up later in the season, right? He started playing like Kelsey did here and there, right? Would you take Kelsey at his draft capital or wait
I'll,
for Jonnu Smith?
I'll wait for John Smith because Kelsey's draft capital is going to be severely inflated because of his name next
Yeah.
year. And
Well,
yeah,
all right, let's just say Travis Kelsey
I
goes
would
to
take shot on X over Travis Kelsey
no,
next
let
year.
me put it this way. If and I think it's going to fall this way. If Travis Kelsey goes, he's a fifth, sixth round pick. Do you take Travis Kelsey as a fifth, sixth round pick as his ADP there, or do you wait on Jonnu Smith? That's not going to be most likely
I'd
drafted.
still I would wait. I mean, it would take. I think I think Kelsey's.
Uh,
It's just the end. He just looks out of shape,
I'm
bro.
not taking Kelsey. There's like
There you
almost
go.
0% chance I'm taking Kelsey off the rosters next year.
And also,
I
you
mean,
shoot like
unless he's not rostered, of course, but I don't know.
I mean, he will be
what
rostered.
what do we say at the top of this? Like, unless you're going for some real consistency or really like some real a positional advantage, just punt the position. Think of you're missing out on a quality wide receiver or running back there.
I mean, it's very clear that you can do that in this league. There, and just like
Oh yeah.
Brock Bowers went off, we'll see, and we'll talk more in depth about rookies that are be coming in. They're most likely every single year, atypically, there is a top 12 or top 15 rookie that finishes up, which turns into a streaming candidate. And some of those guys are just undrafted. So, again,
Or guys who have
punting
been
the
in the league
position
for
is
nine
very
years too.
important.
Yeah. So yeah, that's John. We'll see. I'd be taking a shot. All right. So coming in just behind John at number five. Now we get into some analysis here. So Mark Andrews, finishing nearly 20 points behind John Smith. So basically a tale of two parts of the season. So basically 4 weeks in, he was one of, if not the worst pick in all of your fantasy football drafts. Week four coming in after back-to-back goose egg on you. There were multiple leagues in which he was dropped, and I wouldn't have blamed him if I had Mark Andrews. I would have dropped him. Oh, and by the way, I should mention for this conversation, let's lump in Isaiah Likely because it's relevant to this. Isaiah Likely's in our honorable mentions. If he actually finished as tight end 16. So now Mark Andrews turned it around. Basically, from week five on, you were happy with him. He would have been a perfectly acceptable pick, and his ADP, you drafted him as the tight end four. Even in his grand total finish, he finished as the tight end five. But like I said, you had to weather the storm for the first 4 weeks. I would be like, this is more along the norm of things going on, except two main things that happened. Number one would be a real emergence of Isaiah Likely into a real dominant player on the team. I mean, he had a couple weeks there that were basically week winning in terms of fantasy performance. And the other issue is how awful Mark Andrews looked in the playoffs. So, I mean, it has no relevance for fantasy, but you can't discount that. Mark Andrews just got another year older and Isaiah Likely looked great. Why wouldn't they go to more tight ends, sets? Plus you've got, Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry running the ball a lot. So am I wrong to be pessimistic about Andrews next year or?
Um, I I'm staying away. I think Andrews' years are, of him being 1,000 yard receiving tight end are gone. It just he's just last year prior to he finished number 12, which obviously it was not a return on your investment in 2023, and Mark Andrews in 2022 he finished number three, so that was pretty much like the end of an era kind of element.
That was his
I just
only dominant year if you go
and
back.
I also and I will look at it from this perspective too, like so in 2023 the number six put up 154 points, whereas in 2024, the number five, which was him, put up 147. They were scoring more points last year, the tight ends. Over that, so from the 2023 to 2024 season, they scored on average 20 points more than they did this year. So I just feel like we keep saying the tight end is an easy position to punt unless you have one of those top two guys, and if you could get them late, end of second round, early third round, fourth round, or waiting longer depending on how the script is when it comes to their draft, you got to wait. Let people make mistakes. A lot of these guys, I mean, like Mark Andrews, yeah, he could have he could come back and have an awesome year, but I just don't see it. Isaiah Likely is definitely somebody that I feel more comfortable with in that offense than I would with an Andrews because of the yards and the targets.
Yeah. I don't even know if I mean I don't, I don't know if that necessarily makes Likely a streamable quote unquote tight end option. I'm just saying like it's just the emergence of Likely makes all it just complicates the whole thing so much.
Hmm.
I don't know. I just nothing but negative feelings about it. I have a feeling his name is going to be, inflating the ADP for next year also. Uh, yeah, just not too crazy about it. What do you think, Tyler?
One second, I had a fire alarm go off in my house.
Oh, it's no, it's all right. Uh, yeah, so Tommy, I agree with you 100%. You could let somebody else take a mistake on these guys. Um,
If you want
Hang
to go
on.
viral, burn your house down.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I'm on fire right now, boys. Hang on, give me one sec. I gotta check on something real fast.
no, it's
Yeah, you're
okay.
good.
Literally, I had to mute my mic. I was like, "Oh shit!"
Well, on
Um,
that, what we could let's. It's probably a good conversation because it's kind of in the same vein of conversation. Let's jump to the next guy.
yeah,
So
sure.
coming in just behind Andrews actually is Kelsey for the first time in his career finishing. First of all, it's the first time in Kelsey's career not finishing as tight end one or two since 2016 or something. So yeah, so I mean, you drafted him as the tight end one. He finished as the tight end six, so he did not come through for you. That being said, I mean, Tommy, I don't think you or I thought Kelsey was going to have a dominant year this year.
No,
Um,
I wouldn't touch him with a 2 foot 10 foot pole last year. So
yeah, but I mean, he started performing better in the second half of the year, but the issue here is that like if you just watch the games, he doesn't look as in shape. Forget about the Taylor Swift thing. He just is beyond his years in terms of his dominant years, and
I
he might have not even play next year.
yeah,
So
I
I
mean,
mean,
I will say this. He will play next year. He will be back next year. They're gonna come back and try to win another Super Bowl kind of thing. I think Travis Kelce is beyond football. He's still a player for football, contract wise, coming into but I think he's beyond football now. I think with all the extra stardom and he made it very clear that he wants to be in movies and all this stuff. He's been in a couple TV shows. I think that's where his mindset is. His mindset in the off season is getting as many opportunities he can to be on a show or to get in a movie. And I don't think his off season prep is what it used to be. Um, and again, I mean, it could just be the how some of these players want to do multiple things and not just focus on one solo thing, which would be football. Um, but again, it's really a disservice to his career as well. I believe doing that stuff. He has so much more time in his life to basically do these other things. You want to focus. You want to. If I was a football player and I was in this position and my mind is not in the same mindset as it was 2 years ago. I might would want to just kind of hang things up at that point because now I'm not able to put 100% focus into my game. You know what I mean? So I just think that I don't it's either going to stay the same as it was this year or it's going to get worse. I don't think it gets better
oh,
unless he just
that
kind of shuts it down.
it's definitely not going to get better. And like it's it's funny. We could lump into this conversation another honorable mention, number 18, Noah Gray. I mean, it got to a point where Noah Gray was a relevant fantasy option for a number of weeks during the season.
Yeah, he was scoring touchdowns.
I mean, and Tyler's back now, so let me lump you in, Tyler. So Mark Andrews with Isaiah Likely, Travis Kelsey with Noah Gray. I mean, two aging tight ends who might not be at the top of their game anymore. Definitely more so Kelsey, with some backup tight ends that maybe they kind of usurp or take a more. I mean, how do you see? I mean, are the backup tight ends at all relevant next year? I know both of these guys you're not necessarily excited about the main guys anyway for next year. I mean, how do you see their situations?
I think Noah Gray is going to be a pretty nice little gamble pick for people next year. I don't see what's Travis Kelsey going to be working for now. He's no longer going up for the three-peat. He's won. He's had all the declarations already. He's got the girlfriend, right? Like he's very distracted right now. If he does stick around for one more year, right? What's he doing? Why is he sticking around for one more year? He's sticking around one more year for what's best for the Chiefs is probably why he's going to stick around. And
He's
what's
going
best for
on.
the God,
He's going on year 12 too.
yeah, he's I in my opinion, I'd be very surprised if he does one more year. But if he does stick around one more year, I think it's purely going to be coaching, which he's probably already doing, obviously, coaching the next guy up, which would be Noah Gray. So when he leaves, he feels good about who's taking his position. So he's not leaving his buddy Patty Mahomes, high and dry to some degree. So for him, I think he's totally checked out. I think he was checked out this year. Clearly, we saw it in his stats. You could tell with his new hairdo. You could tell like in
In
his
his porn
physique
star
too.
attitude.
Yeah, in his physique and everything, man. You
Right.
could just see he was not
Yeah.
as dialed in as he wanted to be. He may have even retired this year if they weren't going for a three-peat. So, in my opinion, he's done. He's gonna if he plays, he plays. It won't be as stellar, but it'll be very half him, half Noah Gray, kind of like, hey, going back and forth.
Yeah.
I think Noah Gray would be not too shabby of a pick going into the draft this year.
Definitely a nice shot. And I mean, to your point, I mean, next year, what you talk about, what's best for the Chiefs? Like Noah Gray is probably what's best for the Chiefs.
Exactly. You can put more time into Kelsey.
right, a
I will.
dissipated Kelsey at this point.
I will say this: if you guys were forced to pick one of these guys, Mark Andrews or Travis Kelsey, who do you pick?
Mark Andrews,
Yeah,
whatever the
Mark
ADP
Andrews.
is.
More
Yeah.
tank.
And
More
honestly,
gas
and,
tank.
and I will say I agree with you guys. And my reason behind it is I feel like Mark Andrews has something to prove from what he did last year, and also how the season ended as well. I think he has something to prove, and there was a lot of like media fans, all that stuff, really just a lot of bad words thrown at Mark Andrews, and I think he'll come back with vengeance,
You
at
put
least
no
for one
water
more
in
year.
the argument that likely might be usurping a lot more next year.
I think that he's still going to have value. But I think if I was to choose one of those guys, I think Andrews has a better season than Kelsey.
Okay. Let's move on to number 7. So coming in at number 7 is another bad pick. So we've got Sam Laporta.
Yeah.
So you drafted him as the tight end too, and it was a very high pick. It was, I believe, it was like the middle to the end of the second, maybe depending on where you were.
Yeah.
Um, finishes the tight end finishes the tight end 7, 134 points. That's 14 behind Kelsey. Now he got a little bit better as the year went on, but it was not worth it. And I think we can kind of have philosophical discussions about the Lions and what they do, and if it's just whatever, however many mouths to feed or whatever the scheme is of their offense at that exact time. Everybody on the here's a fact: everybody on the Detroit Lions that was a pass catcher did better as soon as David Montgomery went down. Everybody. That's Amon-Ra, Jamison Williams, etc. So his second half resurgence, I'm not putting that much of now we just need to extrapolate the second half. That having been said, I think that he's still going to be a top 12 tight end. I'd still think of him as a top 12 tight end, but obviously I'm not going to be drafting him as tight end 1 or 2 next year.
Yeah. I agree.
He's a top 4 for me. So I know he was battling injuries this whole year too. So on top of all that, he was battling injuries. He looked great for his rookie year. We know what he's capable of. So we already know, based off of his rookie year again, that we know what he's capable of. We know what he's able to do. And the fact that he didn't really have time to heal this year in a way, that he was never really 100% from what I'm hearing, at least. I don't know what you guys have heard about him, but I heard he was very banged up this year, but good enough to play. So, in his position, when he's not catching the ball, he's defending a defensive lineman or linebacker, which is, that's going to be taxing on you. So I think after this offseason, he's going to have some time to heal. The entire Detroit Lions are going to have time to heal. 16 injuries total for them. And I think I'm not going to hesitate too much with Sam Laporta. Am I drafting him tight end number 2?
No.
Not quite that high. He's going to be like tight end number 4 probably on my personal list. He's going to be in about that range for me. I'm still going to draft him not terribly low, but yeah, if I see him in like round, I don't know, 5, maybe I'll pick him up.
Yeah, he's basically. I think where he'll get drafted is where Trey McBride got drafted last year. Um,
No, it's fun. It's funny, Tyler and Tommy. I wanted to just bolster your point, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but like Sam Laporta is the perfect line for me. On, I'd be happy to go early, depending on where they're at with Bowers or McBride. I'd be happy to go semi early with Kittle, like that's we're saying criminally underrated, maybe round 4 or 5, depending on there. If Laporta's at a round 4 or 5, or any of these other guys, I'm punting. Like I'd be, you guys take the shot at it. You guys
yeah,
take the shot. I'll
I
figure it
agree.
out later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think not in any particular order, but I think that next year the based on ADP or draft again, not in any particular order, but I think that these are the top four is George Kittle, Bowers, McBride, and Laporta, and then the rest of the field.
Yeah, probably. I'll have to probably check underdog for the early ADP stuff. Not that it's relevant for necessarily, but you're probably
Yeah.
right. Um, so we got a weird name coming in at number 8 here. We've got Tucker Kraft, star tight end for the Green Bay Packers. So finishing 2 points, but we always get these crazy names popping in here in tight ends at the end of the year. So Tucker Kraft, very up and down kind of year. It's not like his first half necessarily was better than his second half. He had 1 or 2 big games in the first half, a little bit more regulated in the second half. I don't think that there's anything necessarily to make of this. I'm not necessarily going to have him in my top 12 for next year. Green Bay has a lot of mouths to feed. He just happened to be a mouth that got fed a little bit more often
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah, it was unpredictable of his game. I mean, even if like matchup, you just try to go based off matchup, it just didn't work out like that because they didn't have a number one wide receiver. They just basically just spread the ball around, utilize different resources. And in all reality, I mean, I had Tucker Kraft in a couple different leagues, and he was the tight end one at one point, and then it just, I mean, but he was a tight end. He was a tight end one, but he was a streamer. You know what I mean? So like you couldn't feel
Right.
comfortable every single week starting him. And some people were forced to start him, but you were anticipating maybe getting a 0 or getting a 2 point at that position. And if he had 20 points, fantastic. It was great. It was a wonderful week.
This is
He
this is
won you the week.
this is probably a good point to mention. Probably like from here on out, like just because they finished in the top 12, like from tight end on 8 on, it's like this is like our streaming. We're finding guys, couple weeks, kind of throwing them
Yeah.
in. It's not like because we were rolling with this guy for the rest of the thing. This is a one. Tight ends are a onesie position. The way you manage it is not the same as running backs and wide receivers. So
hmm
couldn't agree with what Tommy said more about this. I mean, you rolled with him. You were happy enough. I mean, he wasn't goosing you, except
He
he
was
did
he
it once or
was
twice.
literally Tucker Kraft, the way he was not drafted, he was a waiver wire pickup.
Right.
Tucker
Right.
Kraft is literally the key player as you call a streamer tight end.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah, he did well. However, I will say he's kind of one of those trap players if you look at the way he performs. So he sells you, right? Weeks 4 to 8,
Oh yeah.
phenomenal.
He sold me
Phenomenal.
he sold me hard.
Sold. I'm starting this guy every game from here until the end now. And then you do that, right? And then after week 8, it's very mid
Eh,
heat. It's good enough to play him. You're like, all right, he did it for 4 or 5 weeks in a row of
It's
him playing these great
that's
games.
why I said he's the type of player that you're anticipating to get
Yeah.
2 to 4 points. And if he puts up 20 points, he won you the week.
you're so right,
Yeah.
Tyler.
Yeah. So for me, I think that was a lot of people with their teams though, like going into if they made it to the playoffs, that he was the letdown of your team. Like, Kraft didn't do it again. Like, I don't know. But if you go with the right mindset, like you did, where it is what it is. But however, this whole year, as we talked about already, was all the tight ends, in my opinion, were kind of a letdown, except for like 3 guys.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
Coming in just after Kraft is another fun surprise. We've got Zach Ertz, young rookie wide receiver. Oh, sorry, old man Zach Ertz, tight end for the Washington Commanders.
The
So
young rookie quarterback is what you meant.
yeah. So he was my revelation of like the streaming tight end thing that I found a guy. I was able to plug him in a couple different leagues and use him and to great effect. I mean, he had a nice stretch in the middle of the season where he was getting a lot of targets, he was getting a lot of touchdowns. And in week 17, your championship, he helped win you your league. That being said, for over the course of the season, it was a bit inconsistent. And going forward, we don't even know if he's going to play. And it's difficult to even talk about this without saying like what is his role in the offense going forward. Jaden Daniels is going to get better, but they had that rookie tight end. I forget his name that it was drafted last year.
Sonnet, yeah, Sonnet.
Who was very talented in college. If even if Zach Ertz stays, I'm willing to think that kind of like that's it. This was like the last hurrah.
He
In my
was a
opinion.
nice safety check down player for, a rookie quarterback, but then also he was a nice role model for that offense as well, coming in and really just helping to, like, you also got to put in perspective too, because he was in Arizona when the offensive coordinator, what's his name? That's in Washington now, but he was
Yeah. Cliff Kingsbury.
like, yeah. So he basically came on with Cliff Kingsbury's offensive, stature when it came to Washington. So, um, I think maybe he plays one more year. I think, he's not like your Adam Legacy Thielen that, came out and, finished his career. I think Washington is going to be, coming back to battle again, and they're going to continue to battle for, basically a nice playoff push next year. And I think Zach Ertz, comes back. I don't think he's going to be a drafted tight end to an extent, because there are some names that, players that got injured, like a TJ Hawkinson, most likely will be drafted over him. Some other players that we'll, obviously discuss as honorable mentions as well. I honestly think that a Pat Freiermuth will get drafted over Zach Ertz next year. Same thing with Njoku, Hunter Henry, as we go through them. But I mean, I just I think he'll be a nice, like, little centerpiece, nice streamer option next year, for a roster that's needed.
Do you think he plays next year, Tyler?
I don't know. I don't know. In my opinion, the way I see it is I think Travis Kelce is going to retire, and some other guys might shy away from retiring because they're not going to compete with that, you know, that spotlight.
That's an interesting take.
If you want, it's kind of weird, right? But I think that would be somewhat of a concern. Like if Travis Kelce comes out tomorrow and says he's retiring, Ertz, let me play one more year. So this way, like, no one's gonna care if like, all right, Ertz retired, whatever. Kelce retired. Oh crap! Like, as weird as that sounds, guys think about that. Like when
That's true.
they think about that a lot. I mean, unless
That's the old Greg Olson. I'm gonna play one more year so I don't retire with Gronk thing or
yeah, seriously, exactly. So this
Well,
way you get a little bit more recognition on, like an NFL Instagram post or whatever.
and Kelsey and also Ertz are the same age, so they were in the same draft
Yeah.
class. Um, so I could see them both playing again. I know we have different perspectives on it, but I could see them both playing again next year. I think Ertz actually comes into the season and he plays better than Kelsey. I just
Well,
I will not touch Kelsey.
Yeah.
the three of us all have different perspectives. Tommy thinks they're both coming back. Tyler thinks that one of them it'll be Ertz playing and Kelsey. I think none of them are coming back. So
Yeah. I think Ertz comes back though. Regardless, I think Ertz does come back. I think he's excited with Washington. I think he's finally thinking he's on a decent little team after being trapped forever with Arizona, and he wasn't too great when he was with the Eagles. I think he's excited to see, like, you know what, this team has a chance. Let's give it one more year. They went super far. They went to the championship game this
I
year.
mean, Ertz was really great with the Eagles at some points.
Ertz was great. I'm saying the team
towards
itself
the end.
though.
Gotcha, gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha.
The team itself was, I don't think he won. He didn't win any he wasn't on the Super Bowl team, right? Was he?
Yeah, he was. He was.
He
an
was?
amazing
Was he?
player on the
Okay.
Super Bowl. That's the same
Okay.
year that
So
he
he's
had
got
like
a ring then.
116
Yeah, maybe he's
catches.
done. He might be done. Yeah, he's done.
Let's move on to number 10, the aforementioned Pat Fryermuth. Now, he finished at number 10 and he finished with 121.6 behind Zach Ertz, don't let that fool you. Pat Fryermuth was awful this year. Okay. He missed 0 games. So he got exactly what his average says. There was no upside, there was no nothing throughout this year. Towards the end of the year, he had maybe 1 or 2 better games. It was bad. This is the opposite of what you're looking for. I mean, if you're just trying to plod along and get, he's not going to goose you. So if that's your bar, fine. But to some degree, I think you should be looking for a little bit more upside. But man, it was bad. Am I wrong
He's
for thinking that?
he's a streamer tight end. He's a streamer tight end that you draft. That's what he is. I mean, but
Then
you
why
got
draft him then?
well because you might not have anything else. Um, but I said it. I said it early in the season. I said it throughout the season. I said it at the end of the season. I'm saying it now. Pat Fryermuth got paid last year, the beginning, right as the beginning of the season. I think that there's gonna be some massive changes with the quarterback room over there. They're gonna have a little
Yes.
bit more understanding of who is the quarterback and who is going to be controlling that offense. And I think he's a nice centerpiece for a new quarterback coming in that system. Whoever it's going to be, if it's Russell Wilson, if he stays there, Justin Fields is definitely not staying there. Even if Justin Fields stays there, stay away from everybody throwing the ball at that point. Um, so, but Pat Fryermuth, you poo-pooed on him, it's fine. I think Pat Fryermuth is your atypical late round draft streamer tight end. He did what he normally does. That's what he does. He's not going to be a top 5 tight end. He's not going to be the number one within a week as well too. Finishing number 1 tight end. He's going to give you points. He's not going to goose egg you. And the weeks that he does put up 15.8 points, or that's a nice cushion for you to win your week.
Right, but I'm saying if that's his absolute
Doesn't happen a lot.
absolute ceiling, like I'd rather shoot late and get me my Janu or get me my, like guys that could at least like a little bit more upside than the nonsense
Yeah.
the nonsense of
Yeah,
what
but
it
if
was.
you're waiting to the last round to draft your tight end, that's what you're most likely going to get.
Well,
Yeah. So he had no games over 100 yards, which is whatever. But also he has 3 games, only 3 games, including postseason right now. Only 3 games with 60 or more yards. Yeah. But
I mean,
yeah,
He's a
it's
product
not good.
of his offensive play.
I
yeah,
I would be surprised actually. He's the type of player where yeah, he's on this list, but
right.
they might pick up they might draft a tight end. I'm not in love with him. He's been there for a little bit now, right?
They paid him. He's 26.
I don't know. I think if a nice draft falls to them this season at a good,
Hey,
a good time, they're going to take it. They're not.
I
in
mean,
love with this guy.
2023 for the Steelers wasn't great as well either. 2021 and 2022 was his rookie year was 2021. He finished number 13. In 2022, he finished number 8. So I mean, and
That's
then
his range, man. 8 to 13. That's your that's your range.
there you go. 8 to 13.
That's
He's a
your
screaming tight end,
It's
just
wow.
like all the rest of these guys we're talking
All right,
about.
so then
I
he's your
can't believe his contract. I just looked it up. I don't.
Yeah.
Fantastic! I'm telling you, he got
$48
paid.
million.
Yeah,
4
he's the
years,
centerpiece of that
48
offense.
400,000. What?
Yeah, he got paid like literally
Bro,
a
he's
day
got
before
he's
the
got
game.
the Daniel Jones agent for sure. Man.
He's got to be an awesome blocker.
Oh my.
He's the quintessential punt your tight end position with very little upside, but a decent enough floor. That's what he is.
Imagine that, and like then you look at a guy like Saquon Barkley and you go 48 million. No. Like,
Right.
that's wild to me.
Because okay, maybe certain running backs are replaceable, not guys like him. But
Yeah. I didn't realize it was that large of a contract. Never noticed the contract. I
Yep.
thought it would be more like, we gave him 10 mil.
That's why,
which
that's
is still
why I
nice,
keep,
but
Well,
that's why I keep saying the boy got paid. The boy's going to play, and he's going to put up numbers next year. And he's going to.
yeah.
I'm not saying he's topping up. He's topping top 5, but if he gets a quarterback, there's a possibility.
well, speaking of horrifically bad contracts, let's talk about
Daniel
the
Jones?
teammate,
Sorry.
the teammate of Deshaun Watson, who's coming in at number 11 here, David Njoku, whose conversation is going to entirely revolve around that guy with an awful contract.
Well, he's not playing next year.
So David Njoku, he finished just like we said, number 11, 112 points, 10 behind Freiermuth. But that doesn't say the story. If we go by his average, because he did not play for
Five
4 or 5 games this year, he'd be up at tight end 5. And if we only count the games in which he played with Jameis Winston, he might even be higher. So uh, we know how talented he is. I mean, he feels like he's been in the league for 1,000 years. I mean, he's only like 28 or something. But it's entirely dependent upon their quarterback situation. If it's Deshaun Watson, I will not be drafting David Njoku. If it's Dorian Thompson Robinson, I will not be drafting David Njoku. Hopefully they get somebody else in there, but I don't know. I mean, who knows what they do? I mean, there's I don't even know what else to say about it.
Njoku was drafted in 2016, 2017 season, so basically he finished off 2017. He is an older receiver, older
Jersey
tight end.
guy.
He's 28 years old. I mean, that's not old, but um, he's had
so gracefully in Jersey. Tyler was
well, so year 2017 he was number 22, 21. 2018 he was number 9. The year he got injured in 2019, he got injured again 2020. Then he was 22, 13, 6, and 11. So I really think if he has that quarterback opportunity, I mean, again, he can do it with like a mediocre quarterback too, because again, he's that dump off guy. He's that guy that basically can really stretch it down the field a little bit more and make those really good plays in the end zone as well. So we're still talking about streamers, but I think that Njoku can have a good season if they plug in the right quarterback.
we don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
But like, I don't. I mean, at the very best case scenario, I think they draft a rookie. Maybe it's Cam Ward or whatever that ends up there. That'll be better than Deshaun Watson, but I don't know if it'll be enough for me to invest semi highly into Njoku. But
Yeah. He clearly is night and day when he has an. I don't want to sound like Deshaun Watson's not an NFL caliber quarterback, but I don't think he is anymore. He's not. He's not a starting NFL caliber quarterback in my opinion. The only guy
who
who
was great with Flacco last year.
Flacco, freaking phenomenal with Flacco. So it all depends who's throwing him the ball. To be honest,
Deshaun Watson lost a step when he left the Texans. Lost like 10 steps.
Absolutely,
he lost his whole foot.
Yeah,
and he lost a lot of money too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then he gained all that money, and I never played it down.
But yeah, Njoku, again, another tight end, though, that's going to depend a lot upon his quarterback situation. I think they're going to, I don't know. I mean, his injury's pretty bad, but it all depends what's going to happen over there because they've got to bring someone else in. They let Winston go. I thought I hated that they took Winston out. I get it. Give the young guys some reps. I hated that.
Well, they were trying to play for draft position.
Please bring Winston to the Jets. Please bring Winston to the
Jets.
Dude,
I'm, you know what's crazy? I've gone from, I used to hate Winston when he was on the Bucks. I don't know why. I used to hate him. I thought I was like, well, this guy's so arrogant or whatever. I am in love with him now. Have you guys seen his?
He's the most entertaining person in the NFL. Oh my!
That's the best thing. Screw Tom Brady. That's the best thing Fox has done with the sports, their sports segment now. Is they brought Winston in to cover the whole New Orleans section. That was hilarious.
That was the greatest thing ever.
But, he did a phenomenal job just being himself. Do you see him like on top of like just giving out Slurpees in a hut position? Hilarious comedy, pure gold. But anyway. We got to see the quarterback situation. Njoku's kind of in that realm with Brock Bowers in a way, not saying skill wise, but it's a bad team with a bad quarterback situation. And you got to see who they bring in. Is it a veteran? Is it going to be a young rookie from the draft or what are they going to do? So that's what you got to see what's going to happen there because clearly the quarterback, if you look at his stats, dictates how he plays.
Finishing at number 12, it's Anthony's not here. This is one of his favorite fantasy football players. So finishing at number 12 is Hunter Henry, finishing just 0.1 points behind Njoku. Now, this is another one of these, like kind of lower upside, higher floor kind of options. He played the whole year. He's not going to goose you, but he's not going to go crazy. I mean,
he did goose you week 17.
Sorry, he did Gucci week 17. I don't know how many people were relying on him as an option in week 17, but the situation that we felt like the whole year was it's not like they had the best quarterback play, or sorry, it's not like they were having an improved quarterback play with their with oh my god, I'm gonna forget his name now. Oh my god, who's the
Drake
quarterback?
May.
Great Drake May. He was improving as the year went on. He made a lot of rookie mistakes, but the team was just awful. Um, so he was kind of the best receiving option in a bad situation, made the best of it, finished in the top 12. It doesn't mean it was worth it for you to play him throughout the year. So every comment that I made about Pat Fryermuth, apply it to Hunter Henry. It's basically how we feel about it.
Agreed.
Yes.
Agreed.
Yeah. I'm going to be not interested next year either. All right. So let's get into some honorable and dishonorable mentions here. So we already spoke about Isaiah Likely and Noah Gray. So let's talk about Cade Otton. So, Cade Otton, he finished as tight end 13, actually. And there was a period of time throughout the middle of the year, in fact, that he was the tight end one. So and let me get the weeks right for everybody here. So from weeks 3 through week 9, he scored 87 points of the 113 that he scored on the whole year. So just to put in perspective, the rest of the year he did nothing. So part and parcel, this was a lot of the related to the Evans injury, but as we spoke
And
about in the
Godwin
what as we and the Godwin injury, but as we spoke about in
in the
the
same
wide
game.
receiver the wide receiver situation was that it took a while for Jalen McMillan to really get his feet under him. And basically, as soon as you seen Jalen McMillan taking off, you saw Cade Otton fold to nothing.
Yeah.
I was reading some stuff in the media that said that he might have been injured, but been playing through an injury towards the second half of the year. I don't know. I don't even know what to make of it. This
I,
might
I
be
mean,
coach speak, etc. But
I mean, in all reality, what NFL player is not playing through an injury in the midpoint of the season?
maybe. In terms of guys I would take a shot on, he's another guy I would take a shot on late. Maybe punt, take a shot on late, considering that see, this is the opposite of Fryermuth and Henry. He is a guy who demonstrated that he can dominate, whether it's for a short period of time. But I'd rather have Cade Otton for a few weeks and then, okay, I'm rolling with Hunter Henry
Well,
for the whole year.
Kate Otten did it with Tom Brady. He did it with Baker Mayfield. So he's done it with multiple quarterbacks. I think he has a role in that offense unless something changes with the dynamic of the tight end position there. Um, I think he's a nice streamer option as well. I mean, a lot of these guys. I mean, I don't know if they're plug and sit kind of plays, but you know, I wouldn't be upset to have a player like him on my roster and maybe doubling him up with another player, like a TJ Hawkinson like this year. It was pretty much like if you had TJ Hawkinson because you were waiting on the injury coming back, you probably had like a Cade Otton or something like that, just as a streamer option until that time came.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, Billy, though. It was, I think, 100% that's where he thrived was basically the Buccaneers got caught with their pants down, losing their two-star receivers. And
Yep.
then the next week, you have to formulate, basically, they probably had to redo so many different plays in their offensive, playbook to be like, you've got to reorganize all your guys. And we didn't know who wide receiver one was going to be now. Was it going to be Shepard? Was it going to be McMillan? Or, who's it going to be? But Cade Otton was still the tight end number one, and he knew his routes and he knew what he had to do. So when it came
Yeah.
to consistency and knowing where he was going to be, that's where Baker Mayfield probably found comfort until one of those other guys, came and stood up and stood out, which was not Sterling Shepard, thankfully.
Well, yeah, and the thing about that too, you make that point is also, that's when really the running back situation really came to fruition there as well, with White and also Bucky. Bucky really stepped up and took over, and they were really running like a double back set at times, and utilizing the pass catching that way too. So they were able to maximize the opportunities with the players they had. And obviously Kadon was a nice beneficiary of, some touchdowns. He had three really back to back fantastic weeks for a tight end. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Another honorable mention here. So we kept mentioning TJ Hawkinson. So he didn't play for the first half of the year, coming back from his injury. Once he came back, though, he was pretty kind of low ceiling, high kind of floor. He'll definitely be drafted in the top 12 next year. He's an integral
Yeah.
part of the Vikings offense. It'll be interesting to see what the Vikings do at quarterback. We don't officially know yet. That having been said, he I thought he looked for the first couple of games, he looked a little sluggish, but then he started getting into his zone. He started getting a little bit better. So if that's the on the floor end of what he's performing, we can assume maybe hopefully better things for him next year.
Yeah, it's
We'll
it's
see.
it's it's greener, it's blue skies for him moving forward.
Yep. Let's quickly mention Chigakonkwo. So
Yeah.
really didn't do much throughout most of the year, except he might have been a part of a championship run that you had. Guy right off the waiver wire, and for 3 straight weeks, your quarterfinals, semifinals, and championship round. 10 points, 12 points, 8 points. Not a crazy amount, but enough to sustain you for those weeks. And he had a one or two other blow up games, and considering that we don't know exactly what's happening with the quarterback room in Tennessee, but it can't get any worse than what it was.
Well,
And for somebody as talented as he is,
there is speculation that Tennessee is looking to potentially trade the number one overall pick and stick with Mr. Mayonnaise,
okay.
or get a veteran in there at the quarterback position.
I don't want to derail this conversation too much. And Tyler, like Wayne, I've kind of mentioned it a few times over the season, but I mean, as evidenced by guys like Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield or whatever, like I feel like sometimes young quarterbacks don't get enough time to develop. And like I think Levis is super talented actually.
He
I've seen
is.
we've seen some flashes and stuff, but like he's being pooped on, and we're even partially doing it being like awful quarterback play, etc. But like maybe he
But
can
but again,
turn into something.
he's also on his second offensive system
Right.
in his second year.
Imagine they stick with him and they give him a chance to develop. Like, I mean, it's not like their team was that good. I don't know. I mean,
No, I agree with you. I think a lot of these teams give up on, and not just quarterback, but even like coaches sometimes they
Yeah.
give up on them way too fast. I think a great example of a properly paced, great draft pick rookie quarterback is Josh Allen. Josh Allen, the first couple years was nothing fantastic. He really wasn't. He made a lot of mistakes. He got hurt. He was running wrong, like he was getting injured a lot, and he really
Worked on his
wasn't.
craft.
He worked on his craft. They invested into him, and he was the only one from that. It was a really big draft class. Remember Josh Rosen, and like that was a huge draft class. I think Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield, right? Is that the same class?
Yeah.
yes.
Um, he ended up being the best guy out of all of them. So, but they invested into him. They stuck with him for about 2 years, and then he really blossomed. I think it was either 3 or 4 is when he really blossomed to what he is today, which is he's easily a top 3 quarterback, especially in
Yep.
fantasy football. But then you look at the other side of things. You look at which drives me nuts, and I'm sure this does for you guys. But Daniel Jones, way too much time invested into him for me.
Yeah.
I was over Daniel Jones after year 2. I was like, you give him 1, 2, 3 years, sure, I get it. But then the huge contract year was that I knew that contract was horrible. As soon as I was not excited for that 1 second.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
he did one good thing. He basically won the wild card and then
yeah,
lost to the Eagles.
he timed his contract perfectly. But to not get into that anyway is I think you need to invest some time into your quarterbacks, let them play. Even Joe Burrow's first year was not stellar. If you go back and look at Joe Burrow's first year, it was really nothing what you expect from a number one overall pick.
No, and then he got his best bud.
Yeah.
And
I mean, he
then
had T.
yeah,
Higgins his rookie year, but then after that, he got his best bud and T. Higgins.
yep. So yeah,
Well,
I think you could, but if they give him 1 more year, that's it. Don't give him any huge contract or anything like that. That's it. After year 3, if you don't do well after 3 years, in my opinion, I think that's
maybe
you're done.
if they end up doing what you guys are saying, I'll feel Chig is another guy that I'd be willing to take a shot on late. The guy with serious upside that's not going to cost you anything. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Another quick honorable mention before we get to dishonorable. So it's basically probably going to be irrelevant for next year, but I just thought we'd mention Taysom Hill off
The
the back
Swiss
of
Army knife.
maybe 1, maybe 2 weeks or whatever. If it literally in the whole season, finishes That's the
Is this like
tight end.
3 years in a row he's done this, where he
The
just
tight
like
end 18,
randomly scores like 40 points 3 weeks in a row? You know what
something
I
like
mean?
that. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, it was the 40.8 points. I mean, he scored 94 points. He was injured for one, two,
It's
three,
wild.
4, 5, 6 weeks, not including the bye. I mean, but he basically put up nearly half his points in 1 week.
yeah.
Wild.
Um,
I mean, I don't know if there's much more to talk about
nope,
him.
nothing
I
really
mean,
to say.
he's a great streamer when you plug him in right.
I'll tell you what,
He also might break his collarbone when he's in there too.
he's I don't even know if he'll be back. If he comes back and the Saints still don't have a quality backup running back, I'd stream him.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get to some dishonorable ones. A couple of the first name on here I know is going to really aggravate Tommy.
He's terrible.
So finishing as the tight end 14, but drafted as the tight end 7, the highest NFL drafted tight end of all time, Kyle Pitts. You want to leap all your heap all your praise on him, Tommy? Go ahead.
He's disgusting. I mean, he's literally had, last year and the year before, he was basically put in the situation where there was like, oh, it's the quarterback play, it's a quarterback play. Well, then you just got, Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins was feeding you the ball. You had one really good week at 23.1 points, but outside of that, you did nothing.
What
Um,
what's the what did we talk about this during the season? And you did the Taylor Swift song,
oh yeah, he always was saying like the quarterback was the problem. Well,
right?
no, no, he's the problem. It's him.
It's not whatever the Swift
He's
song
the
is.
problem. It's him.
It's he's the problem. It's him. Tyler Taylor Swift references out the way. It's been years and years people making excuses for this situation. It's not anything else. It's him.
Okay,
It's
let's move
him.
on.
We can move on. And Tyler, you saw the awful game where he fumbled it literally into the hands of the guy, whatever it
It
was.
was,
Yeah.
yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
He is, in my opinion, a higher rank though, of course, for tight ends. He's like the Daniel Jones of tight ends. Like
I will say
like,
this though.
he literally is like, no, he's all the pieces. He doesn't have the weapons,
Right.
and the coaches are switched out. And there's all these excuses where I'm like, no, he sucks.
I will say this though. He might leave Atlanta and sign with another team and just be a really good tight end. Who knows? But
And he might be
I
bad.
will wait the season. I will wait the season when that happens.
Happened to Sam Darnold.
I don't think tight ends operate the same way. Another quick guy to mention.
Your favorite guy.
I'm a fan of him. So busting for completely different reasons. Finishing at tight end 25 is Dalton Kincaid. You drafted him as the tight end 5. So now he missed a couple of games in there, but even considering that, he was just not performing for fantasy. And I this one I am going to make excuses for. I don't think it's his talent. There was times that he didn't look exactly on the same page with Josh Allen. That having been said, the Bills have, as we were laughing about during the season, however many endless amount the wheel of fortune with their wide receiver core.
Yeah,
They just
they
have
had
an
a
endless
plethora
amount of
of
mouths to feed.
They had a plethora of offensive opportunities. I mean, players out there that can, move the ball down the field. Honestly, they need to get rid of maybe one or two guys, and then he's relevant.
I agree. I agree with that. He's not the primary receiver.
Yeah, but just don't hold your
another
breath, Billy,
receiver
because it's not going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, well, I can do that.
They also have Knox is decently involved. So Kincaid had
Yeah.
400 something yards, and then Knox had 300 something yards. So Knox is a pretty decently involved tight end number 2. I think is also something to contribute to his success.
And they're a more run first offense as well too. They're gonna run the ball with Allen. Actually I run first. I mean, they might be a 55-45, run pass split.
Yep. All right, some other quick names, some other more disgusting names. So Dallas Goedert finishing at tight end 26. He was drafted as a tight end 12. That's kind of irrelevant. I just thought we'd mention that every year we keep talking about his talent. Look how amazing he is. His talent, his talent, his talent. A, he can't stay healthy. He's injured for always half of the year. And B, it's completely dependent on, I guess, if Devontae Smith kind of is out or whatever. So really not worth too much analysis there. Next guy finishing at number 27 is Jake Ferguson. You drafted him as the
Well,
as the tight end nine.
but he was a product of injuries on that
Injuries.
offense too. So for when Dak went down, it wasn't the same offense. I will make excuses for him because he's a great talent. He should have had a really nice year. He got injured. Then there was injuries in the offense. I think next year he'll come back. He'll be an opportunity basically to get late rounds next year, or not, maybe not even drafted. All your Cowboy fans out there will be drafting him. But he definitely will have a nice season next year. I'll be targeting him for
I,
next
I
year.
I lump him in the Hunter Henry Freiermuth category
No,
of
he's higher.
I'm going to go with Tom on this one, actually.
okay.
Ferguson is actually one of my favorite sleeper picks for next year. I'll
Oh
be
yeah.
honest with
Really?
you. Yep. With Dak Prescott at the helm for Dallas, as much as we hate them, right? With Dak Prescott at the helm, Ferguson is night and day. And
Yep.
plus the other injuries, I will agree to that. And I think a lot of people are going to forget about him and how good he was the previous year. He does fantastic with Dak Prescott. Dak
Yeah.
Prescott, whatever tight end Dak Prescott has, they tend to do very well. They tend to be a top 5 tight end, basically,
Yeah. Before
when
him, it
Dak
was
Prescott
Schultz.
is healthy, of course. Yeah,
And before
Schultz
him, and
was
before it was
good.
Schultz, I mean, in 2023, he was the number 8, finishing.
Yeah,
He had 141 points. And again, as I said earlier in this podcast conversation, the difference between 2024 and 2023 finishing points is so crazily. There's such a massive difference in points. The tight end position was the most pushed away position this year, I feel, and it flexes every other year. So I think that, moving forward, going into next year, I think Ferguson is a guy that everybody really needs to put on their target board. Late round guy, people are going to forget about him. Pick him up, plug him in, play him. He's going to put up nice numbers next year.
I I'm surprised you guys have that take. I guess I'll reevaluate how I think about him
No,
in the
no, no, no,
offseason,
no,
but
no.
yeah.
Don't reevaluate. Keep your mindset with him. Let me pick him up in all the leagues that we're in together, and we'll just call it a day.
Let's talk about the last guy. Speaking of disgusting,
He was
so
injured,
he was injured.
and he had
So
no quarterback.
so finishing as tight end 29, Evan Ingram. He was drafted as the tight end 8. So I mean, it didn't work out well. Yeah, to Tommy's point, he was injured for various stretches throughout the year, but even when he wasn't injured, it wasn't performing that well. I got it. They had the quarterback situation with it wasn't Trevor Lawrence, it was Mac Jones. But then again, Mac Jones was launching it, 80 yards downfield
The one guy.
to Brian Thomas every play. That being said, I mean, what was it the one week that he was out? Who was the big waiver wire pickup the one week? Do you remember the guy's name? The backup tight end for the Jaguars.
Oh, Strange. Doctor
Brenton
Strange.
Strange, who finished that week as the tight end 1.
Yeah, I know.
and,
Doctor Strange.
and Evan Ingram, Doctor Strange, and Evan Ingram's absence. That being said, obviously it's not Strange is not usurping. Ingram now isn't he in the
Well, you
same?
know why he finished the number 1, right? Is because Mac Jones was basically the backup. He was playing with the backup. Strange was a backup. You have that connection. They have that camaraderie.
That's what
There
I'm
you
saying. It
go.
was just the one week that Thomas didn't have 8,000 points. But you're right. I think I'm going to be hesitant about Ingram kind of going. It's another year. I mean, his best year was no, his best year was his rookie year before he had that crazy catch year last year.
Yeah.
Ingram had. I don't know if Ingram ever gets to those heights again. I don't even know really what to make of the Jaguars. It was such a mess.
We'll see. I mean, they have a new quarterback. I mean,
New
new head
coach.
coach who can't even say Duval. And
Yeah, why don't we close out on that? You say it. Say it again.
Duval.
it's the new way to say it. It's amazing. It's my favorite thing. Yeah, Ingram did well last year, but this year was literally a third of what he did last year.
Well, last year he was going for the all-time tight end
Checkers.
receptions for their team or something like that.
Yeah.
And so he was just peppered with targets towards the end.
114 receptions. This year he had 47.
Oh yeah, he was injured too.
Well, he was injured, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
It also wasn't pretty. Yeah. So there we go. That's tight ends from this past year, honorable and dishonorable mentions, and like Tommy said, to some degree, tight end scoring fluctuates year over year, but in terms of strategy, like we mentioned right at the top, there's going to be some punting if you don't get some of the good guys on the top end. You definitely see where guys can fall, and you keep in mind what your opportunity cost is whenever in the rounds. And we'll be talking about that as the off season goes on. So, any closing thoughts, Mr. Lang?
Tyler, you got anything before I?
Quick question for you guys: if
Oh
who
yeah.
would be your sleeper pick out of any tight end? I'm going to stick with Ferguson for mine. To be honest with
I
you,
I love Ferguson. I'm gonna switch it up a little bit though.
Good
I know I
question.
poo-pooed it. I
Taking
know
into
I
account what ADP would be,
yeah,
yes,
obviously.
yeah, all that, yeah,
I know I poo-pooed on him a
sleeper
little
pick.
bit this conversation, but I do think that my sleeper going to next year, depending on ADP, will be Mark Andrews.
That's
Eh,
such a good question. Honestly,
He's gonna go
well,
John
well,
because that's not a sleeper though.
well, if that nobody would think. Honestly, like we just said, it would be Chigakonkwo.
There you go.
Because like
There you go.
I was just impressed with how he finished, kind of like how he finished the season, and maybe Levis does
Yeah.
take a step up next year.
But
Yeah.
yeah, we really appreciate everybody that takes the time to watch our video and listen. And even if you're not watching, listening, please like, subscribe, share. If you're getting into fantasy football, we will help you win your leagues. We will help you get to the championship. That is, the most important thing is for you guys to get cashed out at the end of the year, profit. So tune in off season. We continue to drop some knowledge through the off season, and as we get to the beginning of the fantasy football season, because everybody knows it's a long off season, but it's a quick one if we keep talking about it. Um, we will, really help you guys do a deep dive to draft properly, get the players you need, and plug in and win your leagues. So thank you, and yeah.
Cool. Thank you, everybody.